Hello friends, I am Dr. D.G. Shahane, Department of English, SMSMP Mahavidyalay, Nathipute. Today I am going to deliver lecture on the novel The God of Small Things written by Arundhati Roy. Actually, I would like to give you the summary or the story of this present novel. Friends, while we are reading this novel, I got some points here, and these points I would like to discuss with you related to the story of this present novel. The first point is here, the present novel is a story about Ammu, the central character of this present novel, and the battle between rich and poor. This novel is a story about a helpless, lonely lady Ammu who, abandoned by her husband and totally neglected by her family, meets her sad fate. It shows her constant struggle to make both ends meet. She struggles, repels, but in the end succumbs to the innumerable harms done to her. This story shows the battle between the rich, high and mighty, and the poor and the weak. So is the image drawn of big man, the lalten, and small man, the mombatti, and consequently between God of small things, as I would like to tell you, Ammu, Veluta, and Rahil, and the God of big things, I would like to tell Papachi, Baby Kochamma, Chaco, Thomas Matthew, and Comrade Pillai. Next point I would like to discuss Ammu's troubled childhood. The central character of this present novel, as I told you, Ammu, is very poignantly depicted as the daughter of Papachi and Mamachi. Her brother was Chaco. She was witness to the severe crudity come out to her mother by her father, who beat her mother up to with a brass face. Ammu saw the extreme temper of father when he tore a pair of shoes that she had brought for herself. She was also denied proper higher education because Papachi thought it was unnecessary for girls. Papachi, suffering from schizophrenia, behaved decently at times but became a tyrant for his wife and children. Next point, her marriage. Ammu met her future husband at Calcutta when she went to attend a marriage ceremony there. Her husband had to come there to attend the wedding. He comes on a vacation from Assam, where he was an assistant manager of a tea estate. Ammu was in a big rush to marry him, for she thought that people in Aimnem would not approve of her wishes. Hence, he wrote to her parents informing them of her decision, but they didn't reply. Friends, the next point is here, that is the horror of her marriage. Very soon she realized that she had made the worst decision of her life. The man she married was an alcoholic and went to an extent to satisfy the carnal desires of his boss, Mr. Holick, so as to save his job. At this juncture, Ammu is thoroughly shocked. It seemed as if she had jumped out of a frying pan into the fire. This extremely insulting and humiliating incident made her hate her husband incessantly. She, in frenzy and in a tiff with her husband, hit him with a book and left the place with her twins named as Rahel and Ishtar. She returned to Aimnem house, her parents' home. This is the horrible condition of Ammu after the marriage. Next point, ignorance of her parents towards her and the children. To her utter dismay, she found her parents and her brother too ignoring her and her children. She literally burst into tears when she saw the sorry state of her children. I quote here, like a pair of small bewildered frogs engrossed in each other's company, lolloping arm in arm down a highway full of hurtling traffic. Unquote. The biggest blow came when her father simply refused to believe that an Englishman could never dishonor the modesty of a woman. Her brother made fun of her twins that Ishtar and Rahel were indecently healthy. So, such is the condition of Ammu after the marriage, as well as she left her husband and came towards her parents. Day by day, her condition is becoming wretched. Mentally, she is going to be disturbed there a lot. Next point is here, biased attitude of the parents. Actually, it was the era where parents were not ready to keep belief, or parents were not having in mind to give freedom or rights to the women. And because of this, they were also not paying much attention towards herself. Chako goes to the Oxford for higher studies, but Ammu is denied higher education even in India. Chako marries an English lady, Margaret, and has a daughter, Sophie Mall, born at Oxford. This marriage culminated into divorce between Chako and Margaret. Thereafter, Chako returned to Aimnem. He takes charge of the whole Aimnem house and asserts his right over the whole property, and even deprives his sister of her share. He says, I quote, "What is your in mine, and what is mine is also mine. Unquote. This show his typical meanness and male chauvinism so prevalent in the society. Friends, as I told you, it was male dominated society and women were not having respect, or women were not having any kind of right according to the society as well as the parents. Next point is here her loneliness. Ammu was left alone at the age of 24 when she would have enjoyed marital bliss and other enjoyments in life. She spent her lonely hours of silence and solitude on the bank of the river and had midnight swim. She was constantly mocked at and taunted by the old spinster, baby Konchama, that a married woman had no position in her parents' home, and worse still was the position of a divorced girl who had no place anywhere at all. Such was the condition of the period which is depicted through the medium of this character. Next point is here meeting Velutha. Hereafter, Ammu meets Velutha and a relationship blossoms between them to an extent that they indulge in a sinful relationship. Velutha, an untouchable but a talented craftsman, had unrelenting, indomitable spirit of rebellion which immediately impressed Ammu, who also nursed. But their relationship came to an abrupt end very soon. When Vellapappan, Velutha's father, saw them together, he immediately informed Ammu's aunt, baby Konchama, who in turn locked Ammu in her room. Velutha is taken to the police station where he is mercilessly tortured and beaten up to an extent that he dies. He is falsely charged with the murder of Sophie Mall, who, as a matter of fact, died a natural death by drowning. Comrade Pillai, the leader of IMNM, too didn't help to rescue him despite the fact that Velutha was his party worker. Policemen insulted Ammu by calling her Vaisa. When she goes to the police station to see Velutha, because they view their relationship with a lot of contempt, baby Kochama, two conditions the twins to go to the police station and give their alibi against Velutha and conceal the truth. Next point is here the isolation of the twins. Ishta and Rahel have to lead a very suffocated, isolated, and conservative life in the Eminem house. As a result, Ishta, the more submissive of the two, becomes isolated and frigid. Rahel was the one who was more aggressive, assertive, and the more rebellious of the two, like her mother. As a child, her three silent reactions show how much she was against the decaying, dogmatic, and conservative conditions around. She is seen firstly to collide against the other girls deliberately to see whether her breast hurt or not. Secondly, she is seen decorating a cow dung cake with fresh flowers. And thirdly, she is found burning the hair bun of her house mistress. All these three incidents are of her symbolic protests. First incident tells us about her fearlessness to assert herself and her innermost desires. She is bold enough to and tries ways as means to satisfy her curiosity. Second incident tells us about her non-conformity towards what is considered low and detestable. This way she reverses the healthy values of the society, which always lay emphasis on the high and the mighty. The third incident registers her protest against false vanity and artificiality in the society. Rahel is haunted all her life by the unfulfilled desire of love which she always craved for as a child. She was a child of a broken home, a child of a single parent, I mean her mother only, who, though capable of giving love to her, is not able to due to the cold and indifferent attitude of her family. She is a neglected child, and all her life she hankers for love and affection which any child can demand from her grown ups. Her neglected personality thus leads her to grow up into a rebellious lady who does not conform to the rules of society. So, in this way, we can see the change into Rahel also. Next point is here Ammu's death. 31, not old, not young, but a viable, able age. This was the age and stage when Rahel's mother died. Rahel was only 11 years old then. At this age, possibly, Rahel had seen all the crudities of life which a child possibly should not see. She saw the numerous sufferings her mother went through, the injustice meted out to her mother by her parents, her husband, and the society around her. The ignorant and indifferent attitude of the people of the Amenem house, who cared less for her daughter and her two innocent children. She saw the horrible condition of Velutha at the police station, who was betrayed by all around him, in which she too holds herself responsible, as both the kids were brainwashed by baby Kochamma to lie at the police station. All these memories haunt her and reoccur to her as nightmares. After her mother's death, she drifted from one school to another, ended up into unsuccessful matrimony, and had memories of an ignored childhood by the people of the Amenem house. In this way, things are happening there in the life of these characters there. Next point is here to discuss trauma faced by Ishtar. Ishtar too faces many traumatic experiences which haunt him throughout his life and which make him retire to his own shell, keeping little concern with the outside world. The incident at Abhilash Talkies, whereby the lemon drink and orange drink man prompts him for an extremely weird behavior. This particular behavior had a deep impression on Ishtar's little mind when he was only 7 years old and haunted him throughout his life. It had a great psychological impact on his mind. It was such an impact on his sensitive child mind that his innocence was damaged beyond repair, and it bled inadvertently whenever he thought about it. He is he is claustrophobic and shrinks away from all that surrounds him. The word I quote, orange drink, lemon drink man, in the book appear like a refrain in the poetry. The innocent mind of Ishtar is full of this dark experience which troubles him throughout his life. Here, the painful suffering of the innocent Ishtar's mind can be likened with that of Master Philip, a character 7 years old in Graham Greene's story, The Basement Room, is harassed and haunted by the horror of the grown up people. Friends, here is next point to discuss, trauma faced by the twins. The second traumatic experience which hovers the mind of Ishtar and Rahel both was that of their betrayal of Velutha, wherein they were prompted by baby Kochamma to lie in police station and thereby get Velutha convinced. It was an awful experience to see Velutha mercilessly beaten up to death, whom Ishtar loved so dearly. The inspector asked his question. Ishtar's mouth said, "Yes." Childhood tiptoed out silence, slid in like a bolt. Someone switched off the light and Velutha disappeared. Next point is here, baby Kochamma life. Baby Kochamma has her own share of life's experience. She appears to be the vamp of the story who makes everybody's life miserable. Baby Kochamma falls in love with a handsome Irish monk, Father Mulligan, who was there in Kerala on deputation for a year from his seminary in Madras. He was there to read Hindu scriptures so that he could denounce them intelligently. Baby Kochamma tried every way and means to win over Father Mulligan. She put the feigned exhibition of charity publicly to win his attention. Every Thursday, undaunted by the merciless midday sun, they would stand there by the well. The young girl and the intrepid Jesuit, both quaking with unchristian passion, using Bible as a ruse to be with each other, unquote. So there is next PPT and next points to discuss here from the novel. Next point is her failure to win Father Mulligan. Despite all her efforts to attract Father Mulligan, she failed miserably in her designs. After his restricted stay, Father Mulligan went back. At this juncture, so desperate was baby Kochamma to get close to Father Mulligan that she converted herself a Roman Catholic and entered a convent in Madras totally against her father's wishes. She took her vows and entered the convent as a trainee novice with a burning desire to be close to Father in a more legitimate and proper way. As quoted by the author, I quote, "That was all she wanted, all she dared to hope for, just to be near him, close enough to smell his beard, to love him just by looking at him." Unquote. But all her efforts resulted in vain. Soon she realized that she was at much lower position in the convent, and there were other nuns superior to her who could possibly reach up to Father Mulligan. Thereby she became frustrated and restless and started writing puzzling letters to her parents. "My dearest Papa, I am well and happy in the service of Our Lady, but Kohinoor appears to be unhappy and homesick. My dearest Papa, today Kohinoor vomited after lunch and is running a temperature. My dearest Papa, convent food does not seem to suit Kohinoor, though I like it well enough." Unquote. I mean, these are the words which were written by baby Kochamma through the medium of letter to her parents. Next point is here baby Kochamma's frustration. It is very much evident from this letter that baby Kochamma had deep underlying frustration and tormented soul. She emits out her age old frustration and Ammu and her kids. They had to bear the brunt of her dissatisfaction and her unfulfilled desires. She was most unkind to them. She did not let the love of Ammu and Veluta consummate and neglects the two little queens. Ill-treats Ammu as long as they live in the Eminem house. Baby Kochamma's coldness and indifference towards the twins clearly shows her sense of frustration and unfulfilled desires, and because she didn't win in life whom she loved and vied for the most, she couldn't let others also do the same. Now we can see her temperament. She loved ornamental garden, and the way she kept her garden clearly shows her nature and temperament towards things which she wanted to twist and turn according to her own desires and stunt their growth to suit her own whims and fancies. The garden symbolizes her wild, perverted, sadistic temperament. Like a lion tamer, she tamed twisting vines and nurtured bristling cacti. She limited bonsai plants and pampered rare orchids. She waged war on the weather. She tried to grow Edelweiss and Chinese guava. Every night she creamed her feet with real cream and pushed back the cuticles of her toenails. Next point is here Chaco's and Margaret Kochama's share in the story. The story of Chaco and Margaret Kochama holds an important place in the story. They also have a part to play in the twists and turns of the story. Margaret Kochama worked as a waitress in a cafe in London, where she first met Chaco. She, like Ammu, had left her home on the similar grounds for no greater reason than a youthful assertion of independence. She had an ardent desire to be a gentle lady with enough money. She was all set to face real world. As put in by the author, I quote the words, she clung nervously to old remembered rules and had no one but herself to rebel against, so even up at Oxford, other than playing her gramophone a little louder than she was permitted at home. She continued to read the same small light that she imagined she had escaped. Unquote. The day when Chaco came to her cafe, Margaret felt an attraction towards Chaco, who appeared to be an untidy, beautified porcupine. He was tall and well built, and she was most attracted to Chaco's shining, happy cheeks and friendly smile. She laughed uncontrollably with Chaco, a complete stranger. She thought of Chaco's laugh, and a smile stayed in her eyes for a long time. Margaret Kochama didn't cling to him, he adored her for not adoring him. But this rebellious, untraditional marriage came to a screeching halt. It was not very late when they both realized that besides living together under immense pressure, they also had the price to pay because very soon the scholarships came to an end. The rent of the flat had to be paid. Along with the pressure of living together came penury. There was no longer any scholarship money, and there was full rent of the flat to be paid. Margaret had grown fed up of untidy ways of Chaco. Moreover, her parents too refused to see her, as her father hated Indians and thought of them as sly, dishonest people, and were surprised to see their daughter married to such a detestable being. Soon both were divorced and Margaret married to a biologist, Joe, who had all the qualities Charcot lacked, as the author puts it. Joe was everything that Charcot was not. Steady, solvent, thin Margaret Cochamma found herself drawn towards a wedge of light. In this way, the story in the novel moves in a random zigzag order, but the first chapter of the book is so presented that the coming events can be anticipated clearly. Friends, here is the end of the story, summary of the novel, The God of Small Things, written by Arundhati Roy. Thank you very much for listening me patiently.